Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the universe you are today. My name's Andrew and welcome aboard our monthly-ish Space for Change community gathering, where we vote for topics to all talk about and come together and have a real chat and a real shared experience with our change community. I see a lot of familiar faces and it's wonderful to see each and every one of you here. Jump into the chat and do me a favor. I'd like to know where in the world you're dialing in from, but more specifically, are you at home? Are you in the office? Are you somewhere else? Let me know. We've got Melbourne in the home office. Thanks, Karen. Very hybrid of you. Anne is at home office. We've got Melbourne. Jason's at the office. Nice one. Temre's in her studio. That's a very sexy studio. Libby is in a real office in New York. Gaurav is sitting at home. We've got Andrew working from home. Hi, Andrew. Amanda's on the tram. How cool is that? Claire is in her Sydney home office. Yolanda is in the hotel room in Christchurch. See this wonderful world we're in and look at the diverse places. Delene's down in Blackheath. Samantha's home this morning in Sydney. Daniel's at home. He's not yet awake. No worries. Hopefully we will wake you up today, Daniel. Rod is in Gorokan. Bay's in Sydney in the dog park. I love that. Say hi to your dog, B. Sieda is at home, and Samuel from Los Angeles, he is at home as well. Well, welcome aboard. And today, the topic that has brought us all together that our community voted for was hybrid. Now, there's been a lot of hype. There's lots of perspectives, and this is certainly not a one recipe for all. So it's really important we get together and get real around what's actually happening out there, practically, what's working, what's not working. And we have had the most incredible panel put their hands up. We've got Dr. Temre, which I'll introduce later. We've got Samantha Drudge, we've got Gaurav, and we've got Anurag. Have a wave. And we have specifically pinned their videos so that you can see them at the top of your video, and feel free to play with your video settings in Zoom based on your own preferences. So I'd like to hand over to, well, actually, before I hand over to Christina, who recognizes this very famous video? Do you remember this guy? Now, I want to ask you a question. Have a guess. What year did this video come out? I see a lot of claps, a lot of thumbs up. What was the year? Danielle says 2019, Temrek 17, Claire 2019, Libby says 2020. Love it. Leonie says 2017. Christina says 2020. We've got more 2020s. Guys, what if I told you this was 2017? So this was way before COVID, lockdowns, all this kind of stuff. So I think our journey on hybrid has been sort of going slowly, a lot longer before the pandemic. But what's really interesting is just how much it's accelerated and what these two extremes we've gone through have happened. So I'm going to hand over to Chris, my change soulmate from Christina Herrera Consulting. Chris, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit around what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is turn it around and have a bit of a reflection as a community, right? Because the best knowledge insight is as we build knowledge as a community. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Next, we're going to then turn over to our incredible panel to talk about hybrid. And we're really going to unpack and we really encourage you throughout the session to jump in the chat, put those emojis. If you hear something that resonates, let us know. If you hear something that you don't agree with, also let us know. We want to know everything that's on your mind. Next, we're going to turn into those burning questions. So this is where your participation is really going to come to life. Make sure you get those questions into the chat. And then lastly, but certainly not least, stick around for the end. So for those of you who are looking to make sense of change in a hybrid way of working, stick around at the end for a special competition announcement by Hugo, who's going to unpack this incredible opportunity powered by our partners Talenza, celebrating World Distance Learning Day. So make sure you stick around, so that gives us an opportunity to give back to our community. So let's get started. Let's hear from you. So reflect on your current organizational experience of hybrid. So just have a think about that. And what I want you to do is jump in the chat. How would you rate the level of success with hybrid out of 10 currently? What is your current experience? So I can see some people saying 4. We've got a 9 out of 10. Ooh, 7, 8, 8, 7. 10. What? We got a 10. B. Wow. I really want to learn more about that. 7, 7. Okay. Karen. Wow. Another 10. Wow. I think B and Karen, you and Andrew should probably talk as well and share those experiences. I love that. Great. A lot of 7s in the house. Perfect. Has everyone had a chance to pop their number in? 7s. Perfect. Now here we go to the next question. What is the main reason for your answer? So why did you mark it that number? Pop it in the chat. We genuinely want to know. I like having people around me. Yes, I love that. We are naturally humans, and humans love to gather and feel like we belong. So having people around you, absolutely. Because I have a choice. Oh, that sounds really empowering. Love that. Many people turning up in the office and spending the day on Zoom meetings. Oh, goodness. If you're going to show up and not even interact or say hello to anyone else in the office, I can understand why you marked it the way that you did. Social interaction, silos, not higher, as face-to-face connection is really important. We're missing the things. Oh, okay. Sounds a little mysterious, but I like it. Genuine support for work from home, flexibility for the days you work in the office, and choice. Lovely. And it also looks like we've got a couple of organizations that have done a really good job at engaging all of their staff around the decisions on hybrid, right? Not just rolling out a decision, but really engaging and potentially using some HCD tools. So keen to unpack that. Karen, I think you're and well, both of your Karens are talking about the same thing from a time perspective, a fuel, a commute, flexibility, even sustainability. Is it worth the commute? I think a lot of people are asking ourselves that. Hybrid is the way of the future and future. Yes, now in the future, absolutely. I personally work about 95% of my time from home, and I love it. But I do like going in, having that face-to-face interaction every now and then. A friend at Combank said that their division has given up on doing return to office initiatives. So they're at a 3. Goodness. All right, that's really interesting, actually. And I wonder what you mean by given up. Given up in a good way or given up in a, we can't get people in. Oh, I'm wondering about the energy behind that. Yeah, Amanda, yes, to HCD tools for hybrid. Lack of movement, that's interesting. So you're talking about agile and unassigned seating, Larissa? I hate work from home. I didn't buy this apartment for 2 people doing work from home, and I can't afford a bigger one. Libby, I hear you loud and clear, especially, with the state of the world and the rent prices these days. If you don't have enough space to comfortably work from home, it's inherently or naturally just going to become complicated. Feel like you're on top of each other. Is that the feeling? Physical movement, incidental exercise by going into the office. Incidental exercise. I love that. I happen to walk up those steps. I love that. Yep. Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much, and keep them coming. If I haven't written them out, if you're still typing, keep them coming. I really want to hear from you, and we're going to actually pick up on some of these elements and pull them into the panel discussion as well. And you'll see how some of your points are resonating back and forth.
Amazing.
Andrew,
Thanks, Christina.
over to
And
you.
thank you for that. It seems like we've got a whole mixed bag of chips of experiences. So let's dive into our panel. I'm actually going to stop sharing so we can see our panel loud and clear. See our panel loud and clear. That's weird. Let's jump right into real talk. I'd like to start with Dr. Tenray Green. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew, and lovely to see everyone who's joined this morning's meeting.
Good to be here. Now, Tenray, you're in a very interesting position because you're head of consulting at DTS, which does human performance technology, change, all these kind of things. So I would imagine you're in the front row seat of the broad spectrum of the good, the bad, and the curious when it comes to this whole debate on hybrid. Would you be able to paint a bit of a picture from your perspective of sort of what's going out there across industries?
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine it'll reflect some of the comments that we've seen where there is quite a broad spectrum of experiences. And since why not draw it out, right? Let's, if you aren't familiar with Zoom, if you need to pin this, you can use the top 3 dots in the right corner of your video if you want to see this a bit larger. Otherwise, keep it where you've got it. So let's think about a spectrum for a moment, just to answer Andrew's question. I mean, I don't know, I might call this spectrum work models, right? And when I think about the different ends of the spectrum, I'm going to move away from words like, traditional and progressive. I'm just going to say maybe there's been less change on that end. And perhaps there's been more change on this end. So what are we seeing as consultants, meeting with a lot of different organizations? Like, if there's been less change, and probably there's not many companies that have no change, but I might be seeing still at this end, synchronous working, lots of meetings in the in-person environment. Kind of moving into the middle, I might see some of the old practices, but they're being done with dispersed teams. And the, meeting platforms and so forth. You might also see somewhere in the middle that we're starting to get, dictating days to be in the office. Or it's sort of this phase of trying to make old things work in a new time. If I was just trying to think of a label for it. But as we progress on, then you're getting new practices. And this is getting interesting. So then you might start to see asynchronous work. Whoa, asynchronous work. If I can, you go to a whiteboard and I swear you can never spell. So then at this end, what's exciting is you're getting new working models. And with that comes more choice. We get to decide what will bring out the best in us. So we would pick a location that does that. If it is location, it could be a time of day. And thinking about this whole spectrum, there's one of the things that's, I haven't said yet, which is culture. Culture resides along the whole spectrum. And I think what I'm seeing, culture is that collection of values, behaviors, expectations. And I think when you think about when there was less change, we relied on seeing people in person, meaning you observed behavior. So what happens if people aren't in front of you in a physical way? And if I look at what's changing in culture at this end of the spectrum, I would suggest that, leaders are thinking about the decisions that they make, what filters they're, applying in order to get to a point and how that impacts culture. So culture is changing to, along with these work models, probably more from a, physically seen to reflected in decisions. So I hope that helps. It's just a bit of initial thoughts on what that spectrum might look like, and that it is broad. I know we're going to get into, what's working, what's not working, what are the opportunities. I tend to, just to answer it briefly, tend to think about how would you measure what's working, not working? I might think about the health of my workforce. I might think about, are we moving towards our broader vision, achieving our purpose, trying to keep some of the, big picture aspects at play here. And then you might be able to say if it's working or not working.
I love it, Tenray. And it seems like culture, regardless of which mode or model you're embracing, still is important. But the ways, I guess, we keep that alive and we interact that is probably not a one recipe for all. Would you agree?
I agree. It's not one recipe for all. I've had good conversations with clients in healthcare in particular who really want to have the patient journey at the forefront of everything they do in patient care. And they're not comfortable changing their working models, but it is in many ways bringing out the best in them, allowing them to achieve their vision, which is a world where human movement has no limits, which I love because they're in prosthetics and things like that. So, you know, I think it is important to build the playbook for your business. You know what I mean? The playbook hasn't been written. You get to do that as a leader and a change maker.
I love that. So it's like a big giant flip chart that you showed us. It's a blank flip chart that we can do. Thanks, Tim, right?
Yeah, cheers.
I'm going to move to Gaurav. Gaurav is a BA lead working for Westpac. He's also one of our alumni who's looked at hybrid ways of change with us in depth. Gaurav, I'm going to pick up on Larissa's comment. She says that we feel that organizations don't know what their culture is, especially those who didn't encourage working from home before. Now, I know for you, being a consultant, being in transformation and on projects, I know for you, it's business as usual being hybrid. And we also have global clients, so we can really appreciate that. But for the everyday employee, I mean, you're working for a massive organization. What are you seeing in reality? How are people responding to this from an employee's perspective? What are they fighting for? What are they accepting? What's that world looking like from where you're standing?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Andrew. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, it's really good to sort of be amongst some amazing group of people. Awesome sort of questions coming as well, and comments. So it's really interesting to see an engaged audience. I think there are a few things here. So as you rightly said, project delivery has been sort of hybrid for a long time, especially in the technology space. I mean, we have been working with the offshore model for, I don't know what, 20-30 years now. So you're used to sort of people working in other countries and doing work for you and all of that. But I think what really has changed is that how you engage with sort of your stakeholders and what you do. So I think for employees, couple of things that has really happened. So one is that it is going to take some time for people to really embrace, I guess, that coming out of those 2 years of working from home, getting used to a particular set of ways. There's a timetable, exactly when you're getting up, what you're doing. If you have kids, you have your kid activities, you have like planned your day, and then now suddenly you kind of go break that. Come 1 day a week, come 2 days a week. So I think there is a bit of a change in the mindset and the behavior of the people. Some people are embracing it very nicely. Some people are kind of annoyed. They kind of go, this is so tiring, we have to come like a day a week. So it's a sort of a mixed bag. You need to kind of have that empathy towards people. Different people are at different life stages. We saw some comments around people living in sort of cramped apartments. Working from home is difficult. Some people crave for social interaction and meeting people. So I think it is very different for different people. So when it comes to employees, it is that humanness in them, and how they react to this whole concept of, okay, I was working from home, now I want to go to home. What do we do at work? What really has changed from a project delivery perspective is how you engage with sort of the audience and the stakeholders. And I mean, it is all about how effectively you are able to use technology. I think technology has become a big part of life, not from like a social perspective. Yes, you are on your social media and all of that, but at work as well, how you can use Teams or Slack or any of the communication channels effectively to engage with the team. How can you effectively use the project delivery tools? It's not like we were not using Jiras and Trellos and everything before. It is just that you should now know how exactly and how effectively you can use it to your advantage. So People are more interested in doing refresher trainings, going back to the basics, how do I do these tools? What do I do with them? How can I make my life easier? And then with broader stakeholders, earlier it was like you go into a room, you put post-it notes, you have big walls and all of that. Now you don't have that. So again, you use tools like Miro and Figma and, all these new tools which can help you in kind of engaging the audience, getting what you really want, showing that you're solving problems, you're there for them. So, and then the last, not the least, I mean, the higher up steering committees, all the big sort of meetings, I would almost say that PowerPoint is back, because, some way we kind of thought that, PowerPoint is dead, but I feel like in large organizations, we rely on PowerPoint a lot, not only to kind of present, but sometimes you want to really exactly know how to use PowerPoint so that you can make your messaging effectively, to whatever you're trying to convey, because people don't have time as well. So you want to kind of, and you're not getting face time at all, so you want to make the most of whatever virtual time that you're getting with people. So it's a mixed sort of thing in terms of, different stakeholders, different ways of engagement, but it is how well you're able to embrace technology. So I think employee perspective, couple of things. One is the humanness and, obviously where you are and what stage you are and how you kind of react to it. And the second is, use of technology and how effectively you can do it. I think those are the two things that I have seen really playing a big deal as far as people's comfort level when it comes to this whole hybrid concept.
I hear you, Gaurav. You've actually given us such a nice spread of ideas there. One, I agree on the humanistic side, and unfortunately, sometimes we can't make everybody happy. So if an organization's thinking everybody, it's a lot harder. So I loved how you sort of separated it. Two, I loved all those technology tips and tools in terms of Miro, and I really love the PowerPoint one, because what I've noticed, and I don't know if you have as well, but the tools are evolving with us faster. So now on PowerPoint, you can even embed your camera feed, you can make videos, you can do a lot of incredible things on that. So thank you for that. A really good employee's perspective. And I agree, it's a mixed bag of chips. So I think a lot of organizations are grappling with that employee experience, which has become quite important. So Anurag, we've worked together for some time, starting off in continuous improvement and applying human-centered design to change. But also you have a very interesting role as a lawyer, and you often are called upon in universities to look at governance, to look at risk. I think we have shone a very strong light on the employees side of the story, which is very much, flexibility, life, holistic. We've had this 2-year proof of concept. So why do we have to work in the office? What are employers grappling with from a business and a risk perspective from what you're seeing?
Thank you, everyone. Firstly, good morning and welcome, and I hope you find some use for this. Thank you to everyone for joining. So one of the key risks from an employer's point of view, and firstly, I should say this is not legal advice. If you want legal advice,
Disclaimer.
The information is correct as of today, so the 8th of September. So there you go, got the disclaimer out.
You're definitely a lawyer, Anurag.
Of course. So when we're talking about risks to an employer in terms of hybrid, and yes, there's pros and cons to everything. One of the fundamental risks to the employer is that they are in New South Wales under workplace health and safety laws. Your employer is responsible for keeping you safe. Now, traditionally that's at work, but now it's wherever you work. And there are some really strong penalties if employers fail to do that. So jail time, serious fines, etc. Now, the thing to remember is that it's not just for directors of a company, it's actually officers. So that's people who have decision-making power. In a business. So when we're talking about workplace health and safety, employers need to be aware that if you are not safe at home, if you get injured at home, if someone who's visiting you gets injured, technically they may be responsible. There isn't a lot of case law around this, but as I said to one of my colleagues, who wants to be the first? Not me. So that's one risk for an employee, from an employer's point of view, but also from an employee's point of view, because one of the other things that's coming up certainly in education, which is we are mainly online now, is this expectation of privacy, that if I'm sitting at home, I don't want my employer to install software or to track me. Well, I'm sorry, but if you are working at home, therefore you have no expectation of privacy. It's sad to say, but that's it. The other thing is, of course, is that with work from home, and there's been a lot of literature on this, is that people feel, isolated and, got mental health issues. If you feel mentally insecure, if you're being bullied online, your employer is responsible.
And that would all be documented, right?
Of course.
Digital.
So everyone has bullying and harassment things, policies. We all love them. Yep, they're on the website and so on. But how many of, I'm just putting it out there for those of you who work for organizations, how many of your bullying and harassment policies actually encompass online harassment and bullying? See, the world's changing. And so that's my
So Anurag, I love that, because I mean, that is quite sobering especially for someone who's very people first like me. We really do need to strike a balance with the business risk, with leases, with workplace safety. How are you seeing employees and employers have those conversations? Have you seen anything that works practically to find that balance?
Not yet. I think because we're always in a state of flux. So it's a very much, steady as she goes kind of approach. Again, it's as Temre said before, it comes from the culture of the organization, so it comes top down. So, and let's start with your boss. Does your boss trust you? And then it goes, top down. We're like in my, certainly what I've seen in my experience, and I'm confining it to my experience, there are some things that work and there are some things that do not. So we're learning as we go. I was reading some literature just recently that the pace of change has changed. I know change and change. So it's accelerated change. So, and we're playing catch up. So not just with policies and procedures internally from an organizational point of view, but even our legislature is trying to play catch up. And just for the benefit of everyone, because yes, this is Australian based, it's New South Wales based legal information. ASIC the Corporations Act only recently was updated to allow board members to do hybrid meetings.
Only recently, like how recent?
It was done last year. They did a temporary one at the beginning of COVID. It was a temporary thing, and then they've made it final because they relied on people's own constitution to do hybrid meetings. So personally, in my employers and organization, we looked at the constitution. We're like, hold on, we're not allowed to in our constitution. Constitution says face-to-face meetings.
Yes.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of detailed work there. And just very quickly, what advice would you give to an employer, a leader, someone who has that decision-making power to really drive effective conversations so we have a more balanced approach to co-create this?
Well, number one is get friendly with your lawyer. Seek their advice. Seek assistance from employer groups. Fair Work is really good. There's a lot of information out there. It's trying to sort of sift through that. So you use the internet, use your resources. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help people. Because I had to redo it a lot for my employer, and it was not a process I would like to repeat. So if I can help anyone, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
100%. And Anurag's also part of the Space for Change group, so you can find her there as well. But it's Anurag Kamwa, and definitely connect with the whole panel, actually. Thanks, Anurag. I'm now going to shift the lens to the amazing Samantha Drudge. Hi, Samantha.
Good morning, Andrew, and everybody on the call. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to be together digitally. Samantha, we've been working together in the last year, I would say, not just on change-specific approaches to accommodate hybrid, but also just getting to know what's happening within your business. And I know you bring a powerful change leader perspective to this. And I know that you have worked with an incredible organization leading a change practice. I'd like to hone in on some of the practicalities here of facilitating this change from we were sort of working in the office, then it went into completely work from home, to now this weird hybrid world of work, which maybe we don't even use the word hybrid, but from a change leader's perspective, running a practice with and for the business, what are you seeing is work? What are you seeing that's working? What's not work? What's definitely not working? And what are some opportunities here that you are seeing from your perspective?
That's a really big question, Andrew.
I usually have big questions.
And, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I think the key here is that, well, I'll give you an example. I was walking into the office the other day, and I just happened to cross paths of two gentlemen having a conversation. And the big question that they were trying to solve for is a question we're probably all asking, is how do we get people back into the office? Are there any ideas? And I thought it was really interesting, because the best way I think we can address this is that the answer is in the question. Ask your people. It's as simple as that. You know, I can conjure up 1,000,001 ideas sitting at my desk or walking down the street chatting to somebody, but ask your people what's of value to them. And so I think there's this really unique opportunity to ask the question in a way that's very considerate of an organization, but give people the choice. And so I think there are lovely tools that we can adopt from a human-centered design perspective to let people explore. And so my biggest thing, whenever anybody starts talking about hybrid or flexible or whatever label you want to give it, it's about how you and your team want to work within the construct of the ecosystem that you're a part of. So you have to be thinking about more than just yourself. You have to think about your team, you have to think about your stakeholders, you have to think about what's actually working for the organization, which sometimes it does mean, yes, they've got a lease, they have to get value out of that premises that they've provided for you. And I think the key thing there, and I love that, you know, people like Saida and Christina and Karen, and who put in those questions about a whole range of things. There's a raft of things you can ask your teams or your people about how might we solve for this? How might we solve for this? So give it back to them is the simplest thing that I can actually talk about. And I think the relevant way to do it in response to this accelerated change, and we're learning and adapting as we grow, is to build in regular conversations about it. My team loves, and the organization I work for, I keep giving them challenges. Here's your challenge. It's amazing what people come up with, and they're loving doing it. So they're feeling much more engaged. They're actually volunteering to come into the office more so than work from home, because they want to engage with each other in different ways. But the beauty of it is, I haven't decided. The executive haven't decided. They've decided. That's the hook, I think.
I love that. And obviously you're touching on something very close to my heart at Earth to Mars, as obviously we're very human-centered design and collaborative digital tool focused. How has human-centered design helped really drive this conversation? Do you have a practical example or story of how it's worked between leaders and employees to facilitate this conversation?
Well, I don't know who mentioned it before, but this whole process of you must come into the office, whatever the number of days are a week. People are thinking differently about that now in terms of travel time, cost, managing kids drop-offs to school, managing other parts of their life. And so I think what I did a workshop last week with a team around setting up their team culture canvas. And I suppose I just threw 6 topics at them that they'd identified that would actually really help lift how they felt about being a team of people, humans, as opposed to bodies on a video call, because sometimes it can feel like that. And what was really interesting is just by running a simple series of brainstorming activities, how might we solve for this, giving them the pathway, and then adopting some really simple tools around, you know, what I love out of the Earth to Mars course is the change narrative and the 5 Ws, which we're all really, really familiar with. They came up with something that they are so now energized about that we didn't even have to ask volunteers to make it happen. People were nominating themselves. I want that action. I want that action. I want that action. So we created this whole dynamic now, which is more part of our team's rhythm and ritual and practices that we can carry forward to be able to respond to pretty much anything that comes our way, which is really what we want to equip people for.
I love that. And I loved hearing how including people in that conversation just lowers the barriers of resistance. But I think it also gives an opportunity. I'm sort of thinking about it. Maybe we shouldn't be seeing it as employer-employee. Maybe we should be seeing it as people. And if we put them all in that human-centered design approach to change and include them and brainstorm with them, perhaps that's where we drive some of the two-sided conversation, especially with what Anurag was saying. I think there are areas where we need to understand each other and find that balance. So wonderful hearing you. Tembre, I'm going to move to you very quickly. Give us a 3 bullets sort of advice to people out there. What are you seeing working? What are you seeing definitely not working? And what would your end-off advice be for people out there?
Okay, and this is specifically related to, you know, different ways of working. So let's take a very personal perspective. What's working for me is I work from at least 3 different locations, often a 4th. So I do choose the location based off of what's going to be best for me. So today it's the studio, hair and makeup. No, I'm just joking. You know, then it's my home office, or I have a shared workspace. That's the 3rd. Then the 4th, of course, is client offices. And depending on what's needed. So, I mean, for me, having choice, the autonomy, and considering what I'm trying to achieve is working. So point number 1. Let's see, what's not working? What's not working is, and I'm going to have to do this from an observation perspective, is when I see people trying to explain to their people leader, or in more broader terms, their employer, that they are burning out or they are unable to cope with the everyday, what used to be everyday stresses, and now probably feel like a bit more given the volume of change, and that the response is still, you know, we're going to stick in those old ways, and they're missing a chance to genuinely support people to transition into new ways of working and to take their business on this amazing journey. And you could call it the journey into the future of work if you wanted, but the journey into, you know, really taking an exciting, I mean, I don't know if it is a risk. It doesn't seem like a risk to me, but if you're in this position saying this, you probably think it's a risk, but an exciting risk into new ways of working. And then what was the other one? Was it the what's curious or
what would be your imparted advice, just at a high level, to people grappling with this in reality?
For people grappling with this in reality, I think I want to say that anytime you're grappling with something like this, you know right away something's not right for you. If you're truly grappling with it, it's the first sign that you are building a disconnection with what you have at work. Then not short after that, apathy forms, and that takes its toll. So look, you've gotten to that point, right, where you're clearly reflecting on this. I think it is important to look for what really does suit you. You know, I feel like in maybe the way people are seeing them, you know, an outlook on life is, I want to work so I can live, and I don't live to work.
Mm.
And that if you are feeling that way, first off, make sure you have people in your life that you're connected to, that you're talking about it with. And I know it sounds like maybe I'm taking too dramatic of an approach, but
all.
it's not a big leap, you know, from feeling uncomfortable every single day at work because of what's occurring. So I really do think it's time for those individuals who feel that way to start looking for their next career opportunity and move. I would, you know, genuinely say that if you don't have the right fit, you know, show them show them that that's important to you by walking out the door.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's very close to my heart, because that's what I did 5 years ago before I created it to Mars. So it is an opportunity. And what I'm getting from that in any challenge, any crisis, is really an opportunity to collaborate, to question your own working ways, but also question the organization and how they're handling it. And I think the spotlight is really on how organizations respond, whether they're doing it empathetically, whether they're doing it inclusively, or whether they're just demanding people come back like we did in the industrial age. So that really gives a good flavor. I'm going to open up the questions for the group. Can you jump in chat, or even better, if you're comfortable coming off mute, feel free to ask our panel a question. Feel free to direct a question if you like. Is anyone comfortable coming off mute and asking a question? And I'll be looking at the chat at the same time.
I
What are the questions? Yeah, who's there?
Me. So over here, can you hear
Hi,
me?
Samuel. Hi.
Hey, Samuel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you very much to everyone. I'm really enjoying this. I'm curious to know. So one of the questions is how do we bring people back to the office or return to office? So I'm curious, what question might you be asking around? It's a very common question, and I'm wondering if there's another question, or if it's a right question in your view to be asking.
And the question is how do we get people to come back to the office?
So that's a big question in terms of how do we get people back to the office? And many people are
Is that the right
asking
question?
Right.
in your view, is that the right question? And if not, then what should we be asking?
Great question.
Why do we want people to come back to the office? What's going on there, I think, is another question. I'll let the other panelists jump in.
I did a really simple activity when really we started to open the office back up with a not-for-profit. Office versus, and what did you value when you were working from home? And how do we create a blend of that?
Wow.
Because we've all got value out of both situations. So what was it that you loved?
Wow.
Cool.
And the conversation was a really, really, really different conversation that spoke to people's hearts, not just the logic of 5 days a week or whatever. It just said, here's really what the opportunity is. So talking about what they value from different experiences to create, this beautiful recipe.
Love it.
Something better.
The reactions in the chat are going off. They are loving this question. I think that's really good, bringing it back to values. Sam, thanks for that great question. Do we have another question? You can either pop it in the chat or feel free to just come off mute and
I have a question, Andrew, if that's all right.
Listen, hey, good to see you.
Thank you. Likewise. My question is, it's more around from what was sort of said today. It doesn't seem like a lot of organizations have really sort of nailed the hybrid working model. So I guess my question for the panel is, when does it become too much change saturation, given the uncertainty that we've had the last few years doing change projects within the business? How do you manage I guess, not having too much change saturation overall. And the other question is, how do you really maintain or measure employee engagement in a hybrid working model?
Great question. Panel, what are your thoughts?
Making some notes.
I'll just take the second point to the speaker's question about how we manage engagement in a hybrid workplace. I'm a lawyer, so we always work backwards. It's true, we always read things backwards. So it's actually very difficult to do so. So as the panelists have said before, some people really love work from home and they're very productive. Some people don't. As a rule, as humans, we are social creatures, so we do like that engagement face to face. I think we need to think about some new management tools about how we actually manage productivity. Is it by installing surveillance software? Like, what is it? In terms of from an organizational point of view, we haven't got there yet. There's a lot of literature going out there. PwC is doing a fabulous study into this about how do we manage a hybrid workplace, and how do we manage the effectiveness. And so, yeah, don't have an answer for you. It's a work in progress.
Oh, thank you.
I'll jump in. I'm not pro surveillance, but I on the engagement topic, I just want to answer it in two ways. So I think there's really deep rooting issues at play there in terms of responding to an engagement that maybe we aren't actually going to get to solve today, but that need to genuinely be looked at and understood. And then there's the Band-Aids side of engagement, where when you're running, and facilitating change, and you're leading meetings, that we can help people feel engaged by various, if you will, entertaining methods that we can apply, whether it's the technology that we're using, things that we bring out in a studio like this. So like I didn't know to what degree you wanted the superficial side of engagement or the depths of engagement. I think you mean the depths of engagement, which goes, I think, to your earlier point around maintaining it with so much flux and ongoing. I think you said maintaining engagement with change.
So much change currently, and look, you're running change projects concurrently, but we haven't really quite sort of nailed norm. So I feel that employees are constantly, if I use my workplace as an example, we're constantly changing, whether we're sort of 2 or 3 days where we work from home, we're hot desk, we're not hot desk, etc. So there's that constant change, but then you're doing change projects that drive the business. So there's also that side of change. So when does it become too much change saturation for employees to take?
Yeah, it has become too much. We can say that. That's okay. But I think it just because I'll hand over to other people on the panel. I guess the one thing I want to add in there is that there's a difference between planned change and unplanned change, right? And I think Anurag mentioned the pace of change earlier. Sure, everyone's talking about that, but the volume of change has actually increased, meaning the planned change, the unplanned change, whether it's small, whether it's large, it's all change, it's all happening. And I think, and this is to the what's not working, Andrew, the ugly and maybe the bad, is when organizations are flip-flopping. It's not an evolution. It's oh, we're going to try this and we're going to try that. And I feel like there is merit in saying we are on this path because it's the right thing for our people. It's the right thing for our customers. The right thing for us to achieve what we're trying to achieve. Our projects support us. For some reason, though, that is a theory, and that is not what I am seeing in reality. Back to the point of the panel. So who I think that was Jason. I guess all I can really to add to close off there is you're not alone, but I do put that in the box of the what's not working, and I put the what's working in the theoretical box. So I feel like leaders have some way to go in managing how they respond to that.
I can chip in with sort of one thing that we do, at least I do in whatever meetings or things that I'm doing, especially for employee engagement, is just seek feedback. So I did a risk working group, had like 40 people in the meeting. After the meeting, just sent a quick forms, ask them, did you find value? What could have changed? Like we need to kind of start listening more from people. Immediately, I guess we forget that we are in a professional environment. Maybe, seeking feedback is good, bad. We don't know what will come, but, and you know what, 10 people replied, not all 40, but it was good. Found value, some did not. So you know what is engaging, what is not engaging. So sometimes we don't have to really rely on organization tools and all of that. You just have to do it yourself, kind of go, whether this work, even if you're in a small meeting, you seek feedback, what's happening. I think that probably might be a good way of knowing whether there is enough employee engagement and if people are connected. So that's what I found working for me. And also, to your first point, I think there is a larger discussion required and need to kind of, we always say change is constant, and but we really do not imbibe that in our day-to-day lives, in values, in culture. And so how do you kind of talk to your organization and say, what, can we incorporate change as a regular thing? Because everyone should know that things are going to change now on a daily basis. It is not like so then people can move away from this whole change fatigue terminology, because they know what to expect. They know that
Love
things
it.
will change, projects will change, priorities will change, and yeah, so
Love it. And I think Karen actually nailed exactly what you're saying in terms of a phrase. It's continuous feedback loops. Is we should be checking in. It's not a case of measuring it once a year or once a quarter to see the effectiveness of it. We need to get both, substantive as well as qualitative feedback. So Karen's really nailed that one. We've got time for one more question. Anshu, I saw you had your hand up. Would you like to come off mute and ask your question to the panel?
Yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. And
Hi.
lovely discussion for 7:30 in the morning. I think it really wakes one up to look at which way workplaces are going in the future. But I just had a quick question. Are there learnings from other industries? Are there disruptions happening in the chain sector or in workplace as such to learn, like from education? They've always had this kind of a feedback loop and attitude and behavior all there. So are we learning, are the big corporates learning from that and putting it as a learning process for the employees as an everyday workplace behavior to get back to work? Yes, but whether hybrid or are you comfortable with hybrid? Is that going to work for you? Has that worked for you in the last 2 years? Are those things which are being constantly put into the capability frameworks or the HR frameworks?
Okay, I think there's a few questions in there. So yes, I have seen companies putting it into capability frameworks. I have seen companies start to look for emerging practices in this space and try to learn from them. Personally, I'd say don't copy, but pick up bits and pieces and try to get hopefully you know your business well enough that you're able to then start to piece together some of the best elements that might work for your business. And then as far as corporate Australia, I'll have to pass to somebody else to answer that side of things. I
Sorry.
don't see it yet.
Yeah, we're lagging behind, right? But I think there's some great examples, especially on Christina's side of the world in America and the US. We've seen great examples in Europe as well. And I think I personally would look for a customer-centric business and an employee-centric business. I think those are the businesses that are getting things right. Businesses that are looking at ESG or environment, social governance, which is all about sustainability. These are the organizations that seem to be leading the way because they're not just thinking profit, they're not just thinking numbers, they're thinking more broadly. And so are the employees. They're demanding this kind of thinking. Great question. So folks, we're going to do a bit of a group reflection so that we'll share the chat, obviously, in the Space for Change group. If you haven't joined, we've got a LinkedIn group called Space for Change. We'll put the videos on there. We vote for topics. We have discussions. But most importantly, that's how we organize ourselves every monthly-ish. I don't like the word bi-monthly. I think monthly-ish is the Australian term. So jump in the chat and let me know, what was your one best thing from this session on hybrid? What was your one takeaway, your one best thing that you absolutely loved? And I want to see what the group has to say. Spark lighter conversations from Deline. Thank you. Really, really cool. Samantha's approach. Larissa loved that. The one size doesn't fit all. Thanks, Danielle. Leonie says continuous communication and engagement is key. Claire is saying she likes hearing the perspective of the employer from Anurag. Wonderful. Andrew said it's a work in progress and will be for some time. I think let's all look at each other in the eye and say that. And this is where design thinking can really, really help. We appreciate the efforts. Loved what Sam said. The spectrum of change really is relative to working models. So thanks for that, Temre. Lee loved the flexibility, able to manage my time, both personal and professional. So striking that balance. Thanks, Lee. Nice to see you. Kelly says continuous feedback loops. That was Karen. So thank you. And Gaurav spoke quite a bit about that. Love Gaurav's share. Reframing the questions to ask about value from both working from home and working from the office. I think that was golden. High value questions like Samantha's example and the legal considerations too. Awesome. Value-driven outcomes, great one, Karen. I think we've all landed on that. I think that's a whole new topic we can also explore as well. So folks, hang around because I'm going to hand over to my partner in crime, Hugo Hayashi, and he's going to talk a bit about our competition that we run once a year on World Distance Learning Day. Hugo, over to you.
Awesome. So Andrew, if you don't mind pulling up that slide.
Of course.
Great. So for anyone who didn't know, last week was World Distance Learning Day. So that was August 31st on Wednesday. And it's a really cool celebration because World Distance Learning Day is all about celebrating the abundance of learning opportunities that can be accessible to anyone around the world. So obviously with COVID, that's become a much more important thing. So what we've done, this is the second year we're doing this, is we've partnered up with Talenza, and they're a digital and business transformation recruitment agency. So they're also human-centric business. So they really consider candidates' passions and needs, and they connect these with their clients. So that's why we really love it. So this is the second time we're running. So the competition is for prize at the next Australian Earth to Mars Change Accelerator course. And so this ties in really well with what we're talking about, because everything that you learn on this course is all about how do you engage using human-centered design tools in a hybrid, remote, and also face-to-face setting. So entering, guys, this is a competition that Talenza is sponsoring and running. The winner is going to be announced, I believe it's going to be next Friday. We will also share a link to enter the competition. And I'll pop it into the chat now in case you don't have your phone handy. And good luck. It's a really exciting time, and we're really looking forward to meeting the winner in a couple of weeks' time.
Hugo, thank you so much. And yeah, really great sponsor there, Talenza. If you are in the market to find really cool hybrid change roles or digital roles, they are fantastic. They really look at your values, the employer's values. So, and we'd love to see who the winner is joining us at the next accelerator course, all about change in a hybrid world. So folks, you will get a feedback form, and remember to join the LinkedIn group, give us feedback. We'll also discuss the next topic that we'll do. How was that, folks? Put your cameras on so we can see you. Let's say cheers. I hope you had an amazing, amazing time. In fact, everyone wave. I think Hugo's going to take a photo. Hands for hybrid. There we go. Hugo, did you take the photo? Okay, you got all our jazz hands. Okay, folks, have an interstellar day, and we will be in touch. And if you want to reach out to any of us, we always love a good conversation, and have an amazing, amazing week. Take care.
Thanks so much. See everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Andrew.